Zoo is in full bloom with cherry blossoms. Flowers scatter in the wind, and others shine brightly in the sunlight. Crowds of people gather to view the flowers, causing the zoo to become very crowded and dusty. In the square in front of the elephant enclosure, two elephants were performing tricks. They raised their long trunks toward the sky, waving a Japanese flag, and swayed back and forth while ringing bells, delighting the large crowd with their antics. A short distance from the bustling square stood a small stone grave. Few people noticed it, but it was a grave where animals that had died at the zoo were enshrined. On sunny days, it always looked warm and cozy, basking in the sunlight. One day, an elderly zoo employee gently stroked the stone grave and told me a sad story about an elephant. The old employee said, "There are currently 3 elephants at the zoo. Their names are Indira, Jambo, and Menem. However, there were 3 elephants before them. Their names were John, Tonky, and Wanry. At that time, Japan was at war with the United States. As the war intensified, bombs fell like rain on the streets of Tokyo every day and night. What would happen if a bomb were to hit the zoo? If the cages were destroyed and the animals ran wild in the city, it would be a disaster. So, they decided to kill all the animals by feeding them poison. The 3 elephants were also about to be killed. They decided to start with John, who was always troublesome and disobedient. John loved potatoes, so they mixed the poison into potatoes and fed them to him. However, the clever John would bring the poisoned potato to his mouth but immediately toss it back with his long trunk. They had no choice but to inject the poison into his body. They prepared a large syringe and a thick needle used for horses. However, the elephant's skin was so thick that all the needles broke off. They had no choice but to starve him, and sadly, he died on the 17th day. Next came Tonky and Wanry. These 2 elephants always had kind eyes and were gentle creatures. The zoo staff wanted to save them at all costs, so they decided to send them to a zoo in Sendai, far away. However, what would happen if bombs were dropped on Sendai? If the elephants rampaged through the city, no amount of apologies from Tokyo would suffice. Therefore, it was decided that they would be killed at Ueno Zoo. Days passed without the elephants being fed. Tonky and Wanry grew thinner and thinner, losing their energy. Whenever they spotted the people coming to check on them, the elephants would stagger to their feet and plead in weak voices, "Please give us food. Please give us something to eat." Eventually, their faces became gaunt and emaciated, and their once cute eyes bulged out like balls. Their ears appeared abnormally large, creating a heartbreaking sight. The elephant keeper, who had always treated them like his own children, paced back and forth in front of the cage, muttering, "Oh, poor things, poor things." Then Tonky and Wanry slowly rose to their feet and approached the elephant keeper. They leaned their exhausted bodies against each other and began to perform tricks. The elephants stood up on their hind legs. They bent their front legs, raised their trunks high in the air, and performed their tricks. They strained every muscle in their withered bodies to put on a show, hoping that if they did, they would receive food like they used to. Tonky and Wanry stumbled but continued to perform their tricks with all their might. The elephant keeper could no longer contain himself. "Oh, Wanry! Tonky!" he cried, rushing into the shed where the food was kept. They ran out, fetched water, and poured it at the elephant's feet. "Eat, eat! Drink, drink!" They clung to the elephant's legs. The zoo staff pretended not to see. Even the director bit his lips and stared fixedly at his desk. They were not supposed to feed the elephants or let them drink water. They had to kill these 2 elephants. But everyone hoped that if they could keep them alive for just one more day, the war might end and they would be saved. They prayed to God in their hearts. But Tonky and Wanry could no longer move. They lay motionless, staring at the clouds drifting across the zoo sky. The elephant keepers were so heartbroken they couldn't bring themselves to go near the elephants. Others also felt distressed and moved away from the elephant enclosure. Finally, on the 15th day, Wanry, and on the 26th day, Tonky, both leaned against the iron bars of their enclosure, their emaciated trunks stretched high in the air, performing their long-lived trick before dying. "The elephants are dead! The elephants are dead!" The elephant keeper rushed into the office, screaming so wildly he lost his mind. He pounded the desk with his fists and wept uncontrollably. Zoo staff gathered around the elephant enclosure and rushed inside, climbing over each other to reach the elephants. They clung to the elephants' bodies, shaking them. Everyone began to cry out in grief. Above their heads, another plane loaded with bombs approached the sky over Tokyo. Everyone clung to the elephants, raising their fists and screaming, "Stop the war! Stop the war! Please stop!" Later, I found out that the elephant's stomach, which was as big as a bathtub, didn't even have a single drop of water in it. Those 3 elephants are now resting peacefully in this grave. The zookeeper told me this story with tears in his eyes. He kept stroking the stone grave as cherry blossom petals fell like snow.